Okay, welcome, welcome to Faith and Calm. We're here back for session 310. And what's the name of the session tonight, Hessel Shimon? Speak.
I need a city of refuge to hide from.
Okay, come,
I
come,
have
come.
these blotches all over my face from shingles, so I'm undercover this week.
Okay, so Mr. Undercover, can you tell us what the name of the class is?
I just told you what the
What?
class is. You need a city of refuge. You need
Uh,
a place to hide from the turbulent waters of the world. Okay.
Finding a safe place when the world is so turbulent. Okay, so what would you like to say about it?
So this is going to be a one of the more foundational sikhs about the Rebbe, where he really lays out a lot of the basic principles. It's from the volume two, which means it was 1952.
Wow,
So it's a
long time
very,
ago.
yeah, it's
That was
a
the second year that the Rebbe was Rebbe.
Rebbe. So he's
Yeah.
really he's addressing mostly his crowd and trying to explain to them what he wants them to do because they've never heard of this kind of activity before. And the way the Rebbe describes it is last week's parsha. Last week's parsha, we had this idea that if a person accidentally kills someone, he has to flee to a city of refuge. There were six of them, three in the main part of Israel and three in the outside the
Eastern part,
eastern territories.
across the
Yeah,
Jordan.
across the Jordan. And one of the things about it was he had to go there quickly because there was this person called the Gol Adam, the blood redeemer, and if he didn't get there quickly, that person might catch him, and he had the permission to kill him if
Can
he
we
could catch him.
explain? Can we explain there was if somebody killed somebody accidentally, it's very nice and good that it was only accidental, but sometimes a relative can be furious. And the opposite of what happened in Muncie last week when that man's daughter
Yeah.
was run over by his friend and he maintained the friendship.
Good,
So anyway, so
good.
so the relative was hot and bothered, and the relative could run after the accidental murderer, and that's why there were these these six cities. In the future there will be nine, but these six cities where the
No,
accidental
six,
murder.
six
No, there'll be
altogether.
nine.
Nine, okay.
Yeah, and where the accidental murderer, where
Mhm.
the accidental murderer could run. And I think Hessel's. Are you going to say that the roads were incredibly wide?
That's my next.
That's your top.
You're
Okay, good.
you're leading
Okay, good.
into where I'm going. Yes, and the road was very wide. Now, especially for those times, it was 32 almost wide, which
Wow.
would be probably almost 50 feet or something like that
Wow.
wide. So,
Like a multi-lane
they
highway.
didn't have that kind of normal thing, and very nicely paved and marked with signs that said Miklat, Miklat,
Wow.
refuge, refuge. That's where you're supposed to go. So they were marked, and they said the sign said Miklat, Miklat. So what the Rebbe wants to point out is that everything that we see in the physical world is here because there is its sources in the spiritual. Um, and in this case too, there is this idea of a physical murderer, but there's also the idea, and we'll get to it, of what a spiritual murderer. And so there also has to be a spiritual city of refuge, just like there is a physical city of refuge. And this idea, first off, of the idea that everything we see in the physical world is rooted in the spiritual has to be understood. And the Rebbe gave a nice example of that. He said, actually, the Shalah explains that Torah talks about physical things you have to do, physical mitzvahs, but they're really talking about spiritual energies that you're supposed to release. And actually, it's the other way around. The Torah is really talking about spiritual things, but it's making it possible for understand it by giving us physical things to do, like tefillin and so forth, like that. But really, the act of tefillin is a spiritual activity. And how and the Rebbe gave a story. It was from the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Lubavitcher
Can I
Rebbe.
just clarify for
Sure.
one thing? So even though the physical things are um, stand-ins for stand-ins for spiritual realities, it doesn't mean that the physical thing is not important. The physical thing is the way the spiritual thing happens. And if you skip the physical step and say, "Oh, I'm just I can do this in a spiritual way," you've missed it. You missed the boat. The way we change the world is by doing physical things. Go ahead, yes, Fisherman.
Okay. So I fell off the screen. Let me
How?
try and get back in there.
Let's move it this way.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so, um, good. That's better.
Okay.
So, so what was the story? So the Rebbe Rashab, I guess it was a Friday night meal or something like that, and he had family members, other friends at the table, and somebody said, "Wow, this was like 1894. The doctors just discovered a new vein in the brain. It's a very important brain because it has to do with memory and it has to do with concentration." And he was talking all about it, and the Rebbe Rashab didn't say anything. But after the meal, he said, "Wait for me for a moment." He went up, he went to his library, and he pulled out from the shelf a pamphlet, a handwritten manuscript called the Bichalach from the Mittler Rebbe. So that would be his great grandfather. So it must be something like the 1820s. And in the pamphlet, in 6 or 7 lines, it explained how this wasn't the new thing. This pamphlet talks about the vein in the brain that's connected to understanding and das and bina and chachma, and it's very important for all of them because the way you orient your head, if you lean towards chachma and bina, it's good for concentration. So that's why people, when they want to think, they put their head down because that vein works that way. And when people want to remember something, they look up, and that's the idea that helps people remember things better. So I mean, so the Middle Rebbe described exactly how this vein dot works and how it and how that operates. So the guy at the table said, "Wow, your great grandfather Middle Rebbe must have been a big doctor. He figured this out way before they just discovered this, but he knew it back 100 years ago." So the Rebbe Shaznan, and he saw how it is up in heaven. And he said, if it's that way in the spiritual world, it must be also physically in the brain here below. So that's what the Rebbe is saying. Anything in the physical brain, the structure, the body, how the body is structured, how the arms, the legs, animals, anything in this world is a parallel of what goes on and above. And that's one of the important basic principles in how a chassid looks at the world. He tries to understand what is the spiritual reason this is going on, not just the materialistic way. So, with that as the introduction, then we have to say, well, what is this idea of spiritual murder? Well, spiritual murder is basically when I violate Hashem's commands. I'm killing myself. I'm cutting myself off from the source of life. So there has to, but God is kind. If He makes it Ari Miklat, a city of refuge down here below, He does it also for in the spiritual way. And what is that? Torah, words of Torah. When you learn words of Torah, you are in the safety zone. You're in the safety box, like in hockey. I just thought of that. You don't have to worry. Nobody can attack you there. Even the Sutton can't attack you there. And what is this road? That's what we really want to understand. So the road is the road of life. And God stands there like a sign in the road because He gave us all free will. And we can easily make a decision that's the wrong way. In fact, there's this guy named the Sutton, and the Sutton is always coming down into this world and enticing us to do the wrong thing. And then he goes back up and he tattles on us. And then he comes back down and punishes us. So God stands in the crossroads. That's where the signs were, the intersections.
like the signs that spoke. Did you say about
I
the
didn't know.
signs?
We're
Oh,
going to get to
okay,
that
fine.
later, much later.
Okay, okay.
And the sign, and he's pointing, saying, "Hey, take a right. Don't go left. Right, right, right. Right is the way that you're supposed to go on the road." That's what God does. Now, why do we want to know this? Because the Rebbe says if Hashem does it, He's also teaching us that we're supposed to do that too for our friends. So for any Jew that you meet, we should stand also, and we should make sure that if they don't know, they aren't familiar with Judaism and the laws. Nobody's imposing something on you. We're trying to tell you how to save yourself, how to make your life possible, how to make it livable and so forth. You can't go against gravity, you can't go against the spiritual rules and so forth. So you're doing things the right way. That actually helps. That helps bring that up out. Okay. but what does that have? But but you could certainly have objections to this whole idea and saying, yeah, I know, but running out in the streets, going in the wildernesses, and trying to find Jews out there, that's pretty dangerous and so forth.
Sounds like what Chabad does every day.
But Chabad does it every day.
Yeah,
But Chabad did not do it in 1952.
got it,
So the Rebbe is trying to
got it.
explain to you, you know what, Chabadniks, and everybody else too. When you go out there, you know, you might get lost too on the road. And you could bring that up as an objection. When I'm out there in the shopping malls and the other places and so forth like that, it's a place where it's dangerous. People can go make the wrong decisions, go the wrong way and so forth. It's dangerous for me or not. So the Rebbe says no, that's what the Ari Miklat, that's what the signs are all about. Hashem is saying, I'm going to help you and I'm going to help anybody else who's you help. In fact, the fact that you're helping other people, I will help you protect you in case you're also lost. So Hashem is saying basically, yes, when you do this, it helps and it helps protect you, it helps protect everybody else in the world. Now,
Were there
you might
gates
say,
or anything that prevented people getting into the Ari Miklat? Like
Did you say,
what
what's the
prevent
question?
gates or guards or
No, the
anything?
opposite, the opposite.
So
It
then
was
how
like
is that?
wide open.
So
You
then
mean
the relatives
to
can
stop?
just come.
I guess the relatives knew the law.
yeah, no.
That you're not allowed to, and you're not the only person who's living in the Ara Miklat. You're not the if you run away to the Ara Miklat, there's a whole city there. The Levium lived there.
Well, Levium had their
yeah,
own cities, but they also lived in those cities too. So, yeah,
yes,
so
yeah,
any of the
yeah.
Levium cities were the case,
So
but
they'll
also
just get arrested.
You would
the Levium would have tasked you. Yeah,
yeah,
they wouldn't
No,
let
no,
you
no.
do
I'm
so
saying if the relatives would come, they would
if the
get
relative
arrested. I
comes,
mean,
They would be
if
guilty of murder if they
they'd
did
be
themselves.
guilty of murder. If they
Yeah,
outside the city, they're not guilty of murder. Inside the city,
so they
once
they
the
could
guy's
get
already made
like
it inside of the
arrested.
city,
yeah.
then
Okay.
he's yeah.
The person has to
Sorry
stay.
to interrupt. I just
Yeah.
always
That's
No,
okay.
no, no,
Good
no,
wanted to
question.
good
know.
Thank
question.
you. Good question.
So if people say, "Yeah, I know, I tried this whole business. I would stand out there. I was in the Paramus Mall, the whole day and so forth, and nothing happened, for me and so forth like that. And I felt like a fool, and I wasted my time.
You mean they were going there promoting mitzvahs,
Yeah, the
promoting
Rebbe
the
is giving
mitzvahs?
it as an example, and so
Yes.
forth. So
Or
he says,
somebody like
listen,
Oh.
the Rebbe says, there's also another mitzvah. It's called searching for chametz. You do that the Erev right before Pesach, the night before. Now you have to search, and if you don't find something, and you spent the whole night looking, and you weren't learning, and you weren't busy doing Torah, and you weren't thinking you were accomplishing anything, but you were doing a mitzvah, and therefore you said a bracha beforehand. That bracha is not a bracha levatala. That's not a wasted bracha. That's exactly what you're supposed to do, whether you see something or not. And who knows? Somebody may see you and they'll remember, that's what a Jew looked like in the old country. And reminded, that they're Jewish too. Especially in the 1950s, there weren't many people walking around with beards, some glasses and hat, and and it would remind them, that there is such a thing. There are Jews, and and this is we have distinctive clothing, and we behave a certain way. So even if nobody comes to the tefillin stand, that's a good thing. That's still a good thing. You don't know. You might incidentally cause something. But the Rebbe doesn't leave it there, just saying, maybe something could have happened from there and so forth. He says, actually, it's very likely that something did happen in that situation. You just weren't worthy of actually experiencing what was going on. But if you think that nothing is happening, he says, I have a story for you, like this, that goes along these lines. There was a young man, he told me the story personally, the Rebbe says, and the story is as follows. There was a conservative rabbi, and he writes in Yiddish conservative and rabbi, and he came once to a Hasidic Farbrengen, and he was very, very moved by this whole idea. He'd never seen something like that before. So he happened to be a teacher in a school. It says school. School. You have to see school in Yiddish. It's really quite something. And he was thinking, how does he inspire the kids in his class because they're not interested in being in the Hebrew school? So he says, I'm going to tell you a story about there are certain kinds of Jews They don't dress like I do. They wear hats and coats and beards, and they get up early in the morning and they learn before davening, and then they pray for a long time, and afterwards they go and they learn some more, and then finally they sit down and have a cup of juice. And it says juice in Yiddish, juice. And of course, the kids are like, they wait until then to have the
To
juice
have
and
breakfast.
to have breakfast.
Yeah.
He says, but the kids say, well, you're telling us a story, but this is 1952. There's no such Jews around anymore. You're telling a story about people, how they used to be in Europe in old times or something like that, right, Rabbi? He says, no, there are people like that today in America. He said, ah, we don't believe you. I don't believe you at all. Remember, this is 1950s. 1950s, you weren't going to find anybody in the streets, even in New York, wearing yarmulkes, really. So, it was really, really hard. So the rabbi's thinking, and he says, I want to prove that I'm correct, but I don't know. How am I going to do this? So he remembers he knew this guy, and he went over to him. And this guy is actually the person who told the Rebbe the story. So he approaches this young man who has a long beard, and he says, I want you to do with me a favor. Come to my school. Come. All you have to do is stand there. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to answer any questions. I just want you to use you as an example. And an important point here, and that is as follows. I'll cover that afterwards. So I'll just use you as an example. So the guy comes there. The kids see this guy, and they go, well, "Are you a chassid?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm a chassid." He says, "Really? What do Hasidim do?" And he starts explaining all the things, Chalav Yisrael, and this, and the and Mahudar Kashrus, and davening, and all praying, and they never heard about this stuff before. And the Rebbe leaves the story, and the Rebbe says they probably went home to their parents and told them about this. And who knows what the effect was? The Rebbe never fills in the story because the whole point of the story is you did what you had to do, and then there may be a chain reaction, and you never know what's going to happen. And the Rebbe points out in this story that there are actually two opinions on the signs on the way to the Ari Mikla. There is the opinion that the sign, and this is the way the Nigla approaches it, was that the sign said, it means there was written on the sign, and if you could read it, you would say, this is the way to the city of refuge. And he says, and there are rabbis today who follow that a particular approach. In other words, they do. They walk around. If a Jew comes to him with an intelligent question, or if they come to his school or his class or his yeshiva, they'll help them understand about Judaism and so forth. But they don't go out and they don't try and approach people and they don't try and affect people. They wait till they come. They're passive. They want them to come. Or even a bacher standing at the tefillin stand, he waits until somebody asks to put on the tefillin, and he waits. He waits.
Wait,
He
wait.
says that's one way to.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
In that time, there was no turbulent stands.
Oh, so that was Sheish Tab's
Yeah,
explanation.
yeah. There was no. Yeah, the Rebbe
no
urged tefillin stands when in the 1967 war.
67 war.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
were no
yeah.
tefillin
Not
stands back
tefillin
then,
stands.
really.
What is a
Yeah.
tefillin stand? Can you
You
explain to
What is a
those of
tefillin
us who
stand?
don't know what it is?
A tefillin stand is
ever been to the Kosel? We got him
and
over there.
that Chabadniks do it all over. They have a little table with tefillin on it, and if they see somebody who looks Jewish, a guy who looks Jewish, they say, "Are you Jewish? Would you like to put on tefillin today? Did you put on tefillin today?" And so sometimes and they have mitzvah tanks, and the
That's for
guy
the ones who
stands
don't
there.
want to do it in public. They pull
Yeah,
them into
they
the
pull them into the
Winnebago
mitzvah
and they
tent. They don't pull them in. They say, "Come, you can do it
you can
inside."
do it
And
inside.
they put tefillin on them for the first time in their life. There's something very very important about there's something very not good about a man who has never put tefillin on once in his life. So they managed to get tefillin on a
Any
lot
mitzvah
of
you
different
do
guys.
has an infinite effect and it's above time. So
Yeah.
even if it's just one time, and even if you don't become religious, the Rebbe drilled into us how much that affects from God's perspective, how much that one event happened
And
is worth.
from
And
the
then the
soul's
Shabbos verse, it
perspective,
also has
it's
the
like
effect.
a breath of life.
So,
It's a
so it's a
Wow.
completely, so the idea never was, I'm trying to turn you into something, make you something, transform you. All we're trying to do is saying, I'm Jewish, you're Jewish. this is a Jewish thing. It's good for the Jew. You were a Jew.
It's good
Why
for the
wouldn't you
Jew in
do a
you.
Jewish
Yeah.
thing and prove and make your Jewishness? So
You're
he
Jewish no
says,
matter what. You're Jewish no matter what, but you're feeding your neshama and you're changing the world. Two things.
so one last
It's
point
too
the Rebbe
bad there's
makes here.
nothing that they could do for ladies.
They do Shabbos candles.
Shabbos candles.
Oh, okay. Well, that I didn't know that, so that's why
You
I'm
remember
making
the
sure.
story? I told the story a few weeks ago, but we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
So the last thing the Rebbe says is, but there's another opinion according to the Baal Shem Tov that the sign didn't say, or this, when it says the sign said miklat miklat, it means the sign said miklat miklat, and it was a talking sign. It was an active sign. It actually spoke.
Not talk.
Yes,
It
it spoke.
shouted.
Shouted
Yes, it
miklat
shouted.
miklat.
Yeah.
That says that's the way
Whoa.
Chazal Hasidim act when they're. They don't wait until you come to my class. They don't wait until you respond to my flyer. They go out and they don't wait till you come to the Zoom class. We go out digitally into the internet. We advertise it. We promote it. We try and make sure that people who are not getting the message get the idea. And that's the Rebbe's. And this is the Rebbe laying the foundation for a whole effort that we do in Chabad, and why we do it, because we're all following Hashem's example that a person is in a crossroads wherever he is in life, in the intersections out there, and Hashem himself goes out there and makes sure you're going to go the right path, don't go the left path.
Okay.
Tell me
So,
about the candles again. I'm sorry I missed the
okay, I'm
story.
just going to tell you briefly. There was an incredible story several sessions back about an incredible
You know what?
story.
You don't have to tell those story. I don't mean to take up your time.
Okay,
You just say that
I'll
that
prompt
that,
your
that
memory. I'll prompt your memory that a couple had a baby who started crying nonstop when the baby was a few weeks old, and finally they decided to take. It was driving them. They couldn't. The baby couldn't didn't sleep for more than 10 minutes and woke up screaming, and finally they took the kid to the emergency room, and in the emergency room they didn't take them seriously at first. They said babies cry, and then they said no, this is not. The parents said this is just not normal, and they did further tests and they found a large tumor on the baby's brain, and they felt the baby's not going to survive even the year. And meantime, after having that diagnosis, the mother, she left the baby in the hospital and she went to go get her stuff because they told her you're going to be here for a long time. Bring whatever you need, and you're going to be with the baby here for a long time. And so she went out in the sun outside the hospital Friday morning, and she didn't know it was incredible, and she looked dazed, and a young girl comes up to her, a teenager comes up to her and says, "Are you Jewish?" And she said, "Yeah." And she said, "Would you like to light candles? Would you like to light Shabbos candles?" You remember the story? It's one of the most incredible stories. I'll have to find the number and tell you about it. It's an incredible story. So, a documented story, a story that I personally documented. I called one of the sources of the story, and I used to call the family of one of the sources of the story, and they said it's absolutely 100% true. It's one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard in my life. So, anyway, so another story. You're finished with
so
this?
the standard Chabad candlesticks that they give out when
Yeah, they
people.
give disposable candlesticks, and maybe the
And
person.
in Hanukkah we
It's
give out
Yeah,
menorahs,
and they give two candles, and they give the bra. They're so adorable. They have little booklets for girls, for little girls. It's adorable, and they have even for adults. It's just beautiful literature, incredibly beautiful literature.
Uh-huh.
So so anyway, so the story this week is my story this week is about an artist. There was an artist named I don't think he's not alive anymore. Hanoch Handel Lieberman. Hanoch Handel Lieberman. He became known as Uncle Vetter Handel. Uncle. That's what everybody called him. He was a very good artist. He drew, painted beautiful pictures of beautiful scenes of Jewish life, heartwarming scenes of Jewish life.
There's some examples of it.
You have examples of it?
It's easy to search on the internet,
Okay, not now.
but not now.
Okay. So, anyway, when he was young, he had a hard life. When he was young, I believe he lived in Russia, and Russia or Lithuania, I don't remember. And anyway, his father passed away when he was very young, and he went to a Chabad yeshiva, and he was an outstanding student and an outstanding artist. He saw even from a young age that he's quite an artist, and then he was drafted into the Soviet army. You know, they would take you no matter what; they would just take you. And he served there in World War II. And he came home and he found out that he had already been married, and his wife and two children had been murdered by the Nazis. And he was a broken man, and he eventually made it to America.
Just one question.
Yeah, please.
Are people hearing her? Because she's
Oh, do you
speaking
hear
very
me?
softly.
When you make your voice low, no, no. Only
You can't hear me?
when you, right now, yes, but
Now
you
we can.
periodically make it voice low. When you
Oh, when I
make
make
it low, then we cannot hear.
you
That's
mean
why I keep
sometimes?
pushing in my hearing aids
Okay, good.
deeper into
Sorry,
my
I'll just
ear.
sit closer. So anyway, he came to America, broken man, and Lubavitch Rebbe was incredibly caring and incredibly nurturing, and he said, "You must pursue your art. Your art is of value to the Jewish people. People don't see pictures like that of vibrant Jewish life, proud Jewish life." And he did. He pursued his art, and he became a very well-known artist. And the Rebbe told him one time, you're here in Crown Heights. Wouldn't it be nice if you participated in one of these big, art conventions? That's what I would like you to do. I would like you to go to a big art convention and, exhibition. Sorry, it's not a convention, exhibition, and display your stuff. And when you're there, if I want you to get a booth of your own. And when you're there, I don't want you to hire somebody to sit at the booth. I want you to sit at the booth all day, as long as whatever hours there are for the exhibition. And by the way, I also would like you, if there's a Jewish hotel, where all the Jewish people stay, don't stay there. Go to a secular hotel. Go to a regular non-Jewish hotel and and get a room there. That's what I would like. So Hasidim know the Rebbe. And they know you don't ask the Rebbe, why? Why can't I stay at the Jewish hotel? Why? I don't like conventions. Why do I have to go? Why do I have to go and have an exhibit? So they knew if the Rebbe said something, it's a good idea to do it, exactly as the Rebbe said. So that's what he did. He sent his artwork. He got a place at the convention. He sat by his booth all day, and he went to the non-Jewish hotel to when the during the hours that the exhibition was closed, and when the exhibition was open, those hours of the day, he was there sitting all day, and then he would go home. Now, what does a chassid do when he's sitting for hours and hours? As a chassid who's sitting for hours and hours is going to learn Torah, it's just that's what we do, and so that's what he did. He sat by his artwork and he learned Torah all day, and then and when he went back to the hotel room, that's when he davened, and that's when he did more learning. And on the second day of the convention, there was a knock on his hotel room, and he opened the door, and a man was outside. Didn't look Jewish, but the man said, "Can you do me a favor? Can I borrow your tefillin?" And and Rabbi, you know, Hannah Kendall Lieberman looked at him. He didn't even look Jewish, and the guy said, "I'll tell you, I noticed you. I'm also an artist at the convention, and I noticed you sitting by this booth all day, and you're learning Torah all day as the exhibition is going on." And he said, and I want to tell you that I've also heard you davening here in the hotel room. I heard the most beautiful davening, and so anyway, can I borrow your tefillin? And so Rabbi Lieberman said, "Of course, but you can borrow my tefillin." An hour later, Rabbi Lieberman left his room. He went down the hallway, past where this guy's, and at this guy's door number. He told him, I'm in room 204." And he passed room 204, and there was sobbing, intense sobbing. And he didn't knock on the door. He didn't do anything. He just went back to his room. And 2 hours later, the guy comes back. His face is all red from crying, and he hands the tefillin back. This happens the second day, the next day also. And finally, on the fourth day of the convention, he's been borrowing the tefillin. He came and he decided he's going to tell Rabbi Lieberman his story. And he said that, I was a frum kid. I was a frum kid. I was a very frum kid. And
Talk
then
louder.
what? Huh? Oh, sorry. I was a very frum kid. And and then what happened? Communism. And communism was so confusing. It was so enticing. People thought it was the most idealistic thing they ever heard of. We all share everything. And Jews are suckers for anything that sounds idealistic because we are idealistic by nature. And it led a lot of young Jews astray. And it was like a totally hollow thing. It was not idealistic at all. And money didn't get shared by the masses. It still got appropriated by the powers that be. So anyway, so so he said, I want to thank you so much. He said, what particularly moved me was the way you spoke to Hashem, the way you davened. He told Rabbi Lieberman, just you're appealing to Hashem. It was so beautiful. And they
We can't
exchanged
hear.
numbers. Huh? You still can't hear?
When you lower voice, we can't
Oh,
hear.
so sorry. So I don't know. I have to put it up like, I should just take it like this, and that's what I should do.
Oh, so now we totally can't hear you at all. Oy, that's bizarre. Yep, totally not here.
Oh, because you pushed the point.
Oh,
I didn't know you have an external microphone.
Try it.
Can you hear now?
Yeah,
Okay. How about now?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So he said this you know this communism totally led me astray, and your davening, it brought me back to what life used to be, how beautiful life was. And they shared contact information. And then Rabbi Lieberman went back to Crown Heights with his artwork and reported to the Rebbe about the whole convention, what happened with this guy. And um and uh, and and uh, and and the Rebbe was very interested, of course. And Rabbi Lieberman said, so should I be in touch? Figuring I just opened this door in this guy's life. And the Rebbe said, no need. And I think Rabbi Lieberman was very surprised. He said, no, don't do it. No need. And a couple weeks later, Rabbi Lieberman was reading a periodical for artists, and he read that this guy passed away. And so it's just it's an incredible story about, first of all, Rebbe cares about every single Jew, every individual Jew. But not only that, how does the Rebbe know? The Rebbe wasn't perusing art magazines to find out, uh, uh, and even if he pursued them, how would he know that this guy was once, well, first of all, the Rebbe didn't do that, but he knew that your neshama needs to go to another location, and you need to stand at your booth all day, and and uh, and and even in the end, he knew that there's no need to follow up on this. He knew that the person's neshama had already gone heavenward. And one time, the Rebbe never told secrets about how he knows things and things like that. But one time, he did tell somebody. It's a different story that we told another time. He told an officer in the Israeli military who was very, very, very upset that on some kind of move, some kind of a mission, he lost like 32 guys. He lost 32 of his soldiers, and he had been in charge, so he felt very, very, very guilty about making, whatever decisions he had made. And and the Rebbe corrected him and said 34. And the guy said, I think those are the numbers. And then the Israeli uh, army officer said, Rebbe, I have the sources of information. It's 32. anyway, he went back and he went back to Israel, and later it was uncovered that there were 34, not 32. So and he came back to America and he said, Rebbe, how did you know? The top people didn't know. How did you know? And the Rebbe said to him, the Rebbe doesn't say doesn't advertise things like that. He said, every neshama on its way into the world comes past this office, comes through this office, and every Jewish neshama on their way out of this world goes through this office. So if this kind of person is the one who told us that he's the one who told us that good times are unfolding. It's true. It's like it's a tumultuous time for the Jewish people as a whole and for individuals as well. But the Rebbe told us that good times are unfolding, and the world, despite the overlay of tremendous anti-Semitism, the world is waking up to different realities, to true realities. So anyway, I want to end there, and thank you both very much, and thank you everybody else who's online. And
Alexa, what was that reminder?
okay, and I'm going to turn off the recording.